Welcome to TORAH Talk. I am your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with episode number 4 of Controversial Issues with our crazy Rabbi Chaim Kaufman from the Holy Land. Tonight's topic, Kabbalah and Reincarnation. Rabbi, thank you so much. Thank you. This is a topic I've been wanting to learn on and hear on for a while. This is going to be good. So a lot of people are curious about a lot of things, you know. There was something one time I must tell you. I took a car ride one time with this man and this woman, right? I was hijacking. I was hitchhiking. Wasn't hijacking. I was hitchhiking. And so I get in the back seat, and the guys, they look like, pardon my expression, but they look like hippies, okay? Just like Woodstock type stuff. And I was thinking, well, I don't care. They're nice people, right? So they're cruising down the road, and this guy is driving, and the woman was talking to me. She goes, where are you from? And just started asking me what I thought was really dumb questions. And I was just complying. And she says, do you know that in your last life, she said, you were an actual dog, like a little Chihuahua. And I was thinking, first of all, if I was going to be a dog, why not like a Doberman? Why a Chihuahua to begin with, right? So I'm thinking, no, that's just crazy. And she goes, no, really. She goes, if you notice, you've got a little scar. She said, if I'm right, you've got a little scar on the back of your neck. Well, see, I do have a scar on the back of my neck, but it came from a surgery I had when I was a kid. Okay, but the fact that she knew that I had this scar on the back of my neck to begin with kind of freaked me out. You know, I was like, here's my stop. We're out in the middle of the desert. And so anyway, she said, no, seriously. And so finally, this is a joke, by the way. You have to be in the room with me. So here I am telling this joke. And I actually do have the scar, by the way. That's not a joke. And so I lean over like this right here. And the person, like Rabbi Kaufman, you'd be sitting next to me. You would lean over and you would see this scar. And I would just go, I know it's childish, but it was funny. It was funny at the time. So, you know, there's the question.
Is that why your middle name is Goofy?
Dude, how'd you know that? Wait, how do you Goofy?
Shh, don't tell anyone. I got psychic powers.
Oh, it's like, gosh, Max. Oh, boy. Okay, this is going to be a good topic tonight. A lot of, I'm not sure I'll be happy with any of your answers, but hey, you know, this is why we're having this topic right here. This is why we do what we do, talk about things that make people uncomfortable. Because this is the only place you're going to get it right here.
I do it in the regular time, not a problem.
Oh man, I'm total game, and I know everybody else here is as well. So why don't we get it kicked off? Hold on. We are expecting a phone call, and we probably would have already gotten the call had I logged in. So give me 1 second to log in. Rabbi, you want to give us any pre-qualifications on what we're fixing to hear tonight while I do this?
Yeah. So I'm going to give introduction. We'll see how long it takes. Just people understand, where the soul comes from, what the purpose of life is, what the aspect of reward and punishment, and all that. And then hopefully, we'll try and get into a little bit about reincarnation and why a person may potentially actually come back. But there is a, huge misnomer. And the misnomer is that reincarnation is actually a Jewish concept, which I spoke about this once in a Jewish community center in America. And so after I was introduced, so I said, first of all, when I speak about this topic, I just want, people to understand that reincarnation is actually a Jewish is actually a Jewish concept. And 3 people actually fainted. 4th one was on the way down. We had to pick her back up, but they were absolutely shocked. They're like, what do you mean? Judaism actually, speaks about reincarnation. It's, it's actually a Jewish concept. Most people certainly aren't aware of that. So that's actually the first misnomer about that.
Okay. All right. Well, very good. Well, I tell you what, I guess I could kick off with, first of all, just do it real quick, if you don't mind. If you can, maybe in a sentence or two, just kind of re-sum up last week's, in a maybe something you left out or something that might need further clarification, just for, because there are a couple of viewers out there who maybe had some questions, and you can kind of wrap that up for me.
Okay, so last week we spoke about polygamy and about adultery, and mentioned that throughout the Torah, throughout the Tanakh, it's pretty clear that polygamy was certainly permitted. The results of polygamy, and this is really what I wanted to harp on, is that the results were pretty much disastrous. We see that by the wayward son. You have two wives, one that's hated, one that is loved, and one of the results is you have this wayward son. But throughout history, it hasn't worked out so great. We mentioned a number of problems, why it should have been problematic, and I just wanted to clarify that although it is, it certainly is permissible. We don't do it, and Ashkenazim certainly don't do it. Sephardic people, as far as I know, don't do it. The only group that actually, still may have polygamy today, are the Yemenites. And if you look at the Yemenites, most of the Jews are not in Yemen, so they're living in a country that doesn't allow it. Anyway, so the vast majority of Jews don't do it. So even if it's permitted and we don't do it, like that's really the end of the discussion. And in all countries where Jews are anyway, for the most part, it's not, it's illegal. So even if people wanted to say, yeah, it's 100% permissible according to the Torah, which is true, at the end of the day, we go according to the majority. You got Ashkenazim and Sephardim against the Yemenites. So it's like, I don't know, 98-2. So if you're talking about 100%, it's 98-2. So what do I care what the 2% is? It gets nullified.
And we're not talking about change. We're not talking about changing anything because there is no commandment in the Torah that you have to have multiple wives. So it's not like just because the majority is not doing that and that's what we follow, that's not saying that the majority has changed anything. They're just following the flow of what the halacha is.
It's not done, and it's certainly looked down upon, and it can't be done anyway. But it's again, you just have to look at the results. And the results are it's absolutely disastrous. So it doesn't it doesn't matter if we say it's permissible. You want to be part of something that's that's a disaster, and people don't do it. It doesn't it doesn't matter what I think or what I think I understand. If it doesn't if it's not good, then we're not going to do it. And we're very stringent today about a number of things. So they'll just knock it out, and it's not like you're nullifying a mitzvah. Because the only case that would have come up is with Yibum, with if the brother, if a husband died without children, then the wife has to marry the brother. A brother of this dead brother, and that's permissible because that's for the sake of the mitzvah for having a child and naming it after him.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it. We don't have any other.
Right.
We don't have any other cases that would be permitted. So I thought I just wanted to make sure that people understood that and that was clarified.
Okay, good. Okay, phone lines are open 855-952-4253. I'm expecting a phone call from Julie. You better pick up the phone because we're waiting on your call. So I know you're watching this, but so give her about 30 seconds to grab her phone. So we'll go ahead and move forward. One topic, again, like we talked before the show, if it fits in somewhere tonight, great. If it doesn't, we'll carry on at another time. Deja vu. We may or may not visit that, So I'm having a deja vu moment now. I could have sworn I just seen you last week. That's just really weird. So
saw you in your dreams, right?
More like a nightmare blowing up my studio.
Exactly.
Oh man. Okay, so I guess take it away. We'll listen for the phone call. My goal is, and I think for yours too, if we get a phone call in, we'll try to get that answered like as soon as possible because their question may very well be what you're planning on talking about, and y'all can kind of further clarify what the question is in sharp detail. Does that sound okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, perfect. All right, take it away.
So just by way of introduction, if you look back
there you go. Hold it right there. That's Julie. I told you the timing, man. It's all about timing.
Don't move.
All right. Welcome to the show. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Hey, this is Julie calling from Alaska.
Julie, thank you. So neat to hear your voice. We've been friends on Facebook for, 3 years now? And it's like I've never heard your voice before. This is really cool. Tell Shaw a little hi for us. Thanks for calling in. Okay, so tell us what your question is. I can't wait to hear what it is.
Okay, well, it's about reincarnation, and I've been thinking a lot about that and kind of doing some research on it. And for a long time, I've had like deep memories and feelings of another life, and I don't know if this is like from movies when I was a kid, or if it really is a past life memory feeling. And my question to the rabbi is it wrong to want to know about that?
Okay, that's really a great question, because a lot of people will tell you, oh, don't dabble in that stuff. Just leave it alone, forget it, bury it, hide it, run away from it, focus on God. But that's a great question. I mean, is there benefit in researching this thing, Rabbi? Okay, well, Julie, that's really cool. Rabbi, do you have any follow-up question for her to give you better? Okay.
No, that's good.
Very good. Julie, thank you. So good to hear your voice. Take care. Shalom, shalom.
Oh, yeah, have a great night.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
So to answer that, I guess in the short version or the short long version, there's
make a long story longer.
Most people today have been reincarnated. According to Kabbalah, either a person's come back in this world 3 times, maybe 4 times, have had past lives, and this is probably our last Torah, so to speak. All the souls have to come out in order for the Messiah to come. But the question at hand is, what about past lives or past memories? So, according, as far as I understand, doesn't make me an expert by any stretch, but as far as I understand, a person in this world is never gonna know what happened in their past life. They're not gonna know who their past soul is. Now, people can ask. There's a book written by Brian Weiss, who it's called Many Masters, Many Lives, and he wrote a book about basically putting people under hypnosis, like deep hypnosis, and people spoke about past lives. So according to him, the way he worked it out is that you could, a person could go deep under, deep in the subconscious, and should be able to pull out, these past life experiences to help them, to help whatever they're going through today, to help explain certain things, what they're going through today. The problem is, according to Kabbalah, that doesn't really fit, because according to Kabbalah, there's no possible way a person can know that. So I showed it to a major Kabbalist here in Israel, and basically the way he looked at it was that the person writing this mixed in a lot of different things. Mixed in I don't know, some things about the Hindus or Buddhism or other type of things which are not totally not Jewish concepts. Keep in mind that Buddhism and Hinduism, which is they have a major thing when it comes to this. They came 2,000 years later, right? 2,000 years later than the Jewish people. Kabbalah in general, just to explain, it was given over to Moshe. Moshe passed it down. The prophets had it. The prophets had it as well, and it was revealed. It was revealed in about 135 before in the Common Era by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and he revealed the Zohar. Why did he reveal it on the day of his death? Because he was afraid, like the other rabbis were, that all this oral tradition was going to get lost. So he wrote this down. He spent time hiding in a cave with his disciples, and he taught what he had received. And then eventually, it was written down. And then you have the great Kabbalist Ramosha Cordovero, the Ramak, died in the 1570, and Rav Isaac Luria, who died in actually 1572, known as the famous Ari, and he wrote a major, commentary of the Zohar, which we have today, which is learned. So according to simple Kabbalah, I don't know if you can say that, but according to simple Kabbalah, it's an impossibility, right? It's an impossibility to know. So exactly what are these flashbacks, or what are these memories? So that I can't answer. If it's something you want to look into, I don't know if it necessarily be hazardous to your health, to want to look into it. But at the end of the day, for what we need to go through in this world, that really shouldn't play a it shouldn't play a factor whatsoever. What we do, I once mentioned to one of my rabbis who's very much steeped in Kabbalah, that if I ever get a hold of my reincarnated soul, I'm going to grab him by the throat and say, like, why did you do this? That I had to go through all this. And this rabbi told me, he says, Chaim, he says, listen, if you would see him right in front of you in a mirror, you wouldn't recognize him anyway.
That's
so,
funny.
I was like, wait a minute, that really doesn't matter. He goes, no, that is the point. You're not going to know.
Right.
It's an impossibility. According to Kabbalah, it's an impossibility. So what are these other, what are these other things that a person feels? So, it could be any number of, things of, what it is. But I got straight according to Kabbalah, it's not a past, it's not a past life. It's not a past life type of thing.
It's not a premonition, not premonition, but it's not a memory of.
It could be, again, it could be a manifestation of some, some other things.
Well, question for you.
Let's say it could be, it's like when a person dreams. Most dreams, which is probably a topic, one day we'll cover, but most dreams don't mean anything either. 99% of all dreams, are pretty much useless because. A person goes to sleep. A lot of the manifestations of what he'll dream about are what happened to him during the day.
Exactly.
Except if you're a king.
Right.
If you're a king or a prophet, that has tremendous
true.
weight. That's why in the story of Joseph and the brothers, for instance, Joseph had to give over, these dreams because it was a form of prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a prophet, you have to give over the prophecy that God tells you to give over. Actually, you have to get it right, because if you don't get it right, you die, which is pretty bad. But even to put himself in danger, put his life in danger, that's what he had to do, and that's where the story begins with Joseph and his brothers.
Right. You know what? The thought that I had as we're talking is when a person does dream like that, and this is referring to like Julie's question, and is influence has a lot to do with our dreams specifically. I hardly ever dream. I mean, they say everybody always dreams, but I hardly ever remember anything. I don't ever remember dreaming, but just maybe once every 6 months I'll have this weird vivid memory of the dream I had the night before. And it's like last night I had this dream that encapsulated 4 different events that happened on 4 different days last week, and they all revisited me in the dream that night, just a few nights ago, whatever. I can't remember if it was. That's how my memory is. I can't even remember if it was last night or the night before. But it was triggered by something that I was exposed to. When I was a kid, it's just like whenever you have nightmares. Same thing. You watch a scary movie, you have nightmares.
Right.
When I was a kid, I used to love watching. There was a show called Man from Atlantis, and this dude, he could swim underwater, breathe underwater, and all this other stuff. And every once in a while, I have a dream that I was this guy. Even as a younger adult, I would have one of those dreams again that I was this guy. But for me, it was obvious though, because it was like one of my favorite shows growing up as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I'm just glad it didn't turn out to be the Jetsons dog.
Number of places dreams.
Yeah.
Are totally irrelevant. If a person has a scary dream, for instance, and it really bothers them, there is a way. Actually, there are certain things you say, do in front of 3 people, and if a person has like a let's say a recurring dream or something that really bothers them. But again, 99.9% of all dreams are just a manifestation of what we've gone through either during the day, during the week, or whatever. Again, unless you're a king or a prophet, then then it's significant. Otherwise, the message we're getting is like, yeah, scary movie, or maybe you ate some artichokes or something, and it affected you that way. Right, gotcha. But whatever it is, but it's totally, it's totally irrelevant. A person, while we're just on this topic for a second, a person could have somebody come to them in a dream, and reveal something that is real. That has that certainly has happened. So that I can understand is something that is, that's real, that has to be, that has to be dealt with. But in general, most of this stuff, wouldn't worry about it.
Okay. Well, let's go back to the beginning now. The phone lines are open, by the way. You guys can call in if you want to, if you've got questions that are in line with tonight's topics. So, Rabbi, let's go back and just go ahead and start with the preliminary course on to prepare everybody's minds for what you're going to say and where this idea comes from, blah, blah, and just give us what you want to do there. And then I know you've got some stuff prepared for us already. And so just go ahead and take it away. And From this point on, when a call comes in, we're going to wait for you to break in your thought before we take the call. So when you call in, be prepared to hold, 5-10 minutes, whatever, and then we'll get to your call. But you could stay on the phone and listen to us talk, but I'll have the volume down on you. So if you cough or I hear dogs bark in the background, it won't be a distraction. Okay, Rabbi, take it away.
Or you got a question in between, so you can stop me. Either way, that's
okay.
fine.
All right, cool.
All right, so let's start from the beginning. In the beginning, you go over to Genesis chapter 2. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. The Torah says that God blew into the nostrils the soul of life. Man became a living being. So the soul, as we know or as we understand, comes from a soul world. A man is made up of body and soul. The soul that God breathed into us gives us life. If he takes the soul out, that means a person dies. A person can't live. Person can't live without a soul. So the Aramaic translation Onkelos on the Torah says that when God breathed in the soul of life, it's called a ruach memalelo. A ruach memalelo means like a spirit that speaks. Right? It gives you the ability to speak. It just doesn't mean speaking. It means also to reason, to make decisions. Now, also animals, speak, but obviously, unless we're Dr. Doodle, we don't understand. We don't understand what they say. Nonetheless, animals are programmed DNA, right? They can't go outside their nature. Only man has the ability to affect other things, as the Ramchal, as Ramosha Chaim Lutzato and Derech Hashem in the Way of God says, that we cannot do, man has the power to affect other things, whereas animals are affected by us. They can't do anything. Other forces, you got, wind, fire, trees, plants, all these things. They're also programmed, right? They can't do anything in and of themselves. So if the ocean says, I want to make a tsunami, I want to destroy half of Southeast Asia, we'll put Atlas, back on the map. No pun intended. Nonetheless, God can say either yay or nay. And if he says yay, okay, so it'll happen. If he doesn't, it's not going to happen. So the soul goes into the body. So now you have to understand that, when God, what does he want? What does he want in this world? God is omnipotent, is omniscient. God's all-knowing. The world is his. He can run through a black hole. He can play with, all the planets and everything else. He really doesn't need man, right? Because if we say God is lacking in anything, that means, if we put limits on him. So God is not limited. So if God is not limited, then he doesn't really need any of us. Like in theory, he doesn't need any of us. He could just be doing whatever he's doing. So he gave us the world and he created us to gain from his goodness, right? He wanted to give his goodness to the world. So there's an obvious question, what exactly is his goodness? What is that, what exactly does that mean? So we have to go back again, to the soul, that God breathed in this soul of life. And this soul of life has a purpose, right? The soul, when it goes into the body, is given a purpose in this world. Everybody is given a purpose in this world. What's our purpose? That's a good question, right? It's very hard to, fathom what our purpose is, because usually a soul's going to come back. We'll see if we get to that. If a soul's going to come back, and it's going to have to fix up whatever it messed up, in this world. So if that's true, then what it's doing here is, imagine, we'll put it like this. Imagine that a person has difficulty in something. Like the most difficult thing that they do that for them to do in this world. Let's say, for example, the most difficult thing a person has to do is, to say thank you for someone else that does something for you. That's like, or if you go back to Happy Days, Asa Fonzarelli can't say I'm sorry, right? Something like that. And that's like the hardest thing in the world for a person to do. So in that case, most likely, not proven, but most likely, that's probably what you're here to fix, right? Think about the most difficult thing that you could ever do in your life, and you would, run away from it like the plague and say, there's no way I'll ever do it. I'm not interested in doing it. You'll never go near it. That's probably what you're doing here. So now keep in mind, the soul comes from this soul world. Absolutely powerful. tremendously powerful. God sticks it in the body. Now, in theory, when the soul goes in the body, the soul is so powerful, the body should explode. But what happens? The body, where does it come from? Comes from the four corners of the earth. As the Torah says, God took the dust from the four corners of the earth for man. When the soul goes in, it gets trapped. Right? Totally gets trapped. It's like it's like in an opaque box, and it can't get out. Until obviously God wants it to come out. So now when the soul goes in and it's trapped, so what you have now is man is a hybrid of body and soul. So you have this conflict where the body is physical, and the body wants to go after physical things in this world. The soul wants to go after spiritual things. Now, if the soul wants to shine, and in this world it's an impossibility really for the soul to shine unless it's outside the body. But for a soul to shine in this world, the soul needs nourishment. You got to feed it, just like you feed the body. So if you don't feed the soul, even though the soul can live on forever, right? Nonetheless, the if you don't feed it, it dies, right? Potentially, it dies because the more we fill it with garbage, it needs something. It needs something to function. But the less you give it, so the more you're going to be physical. The more you feed the spiritual soul, the more you're going to shine as a spiritual being. Now, obviously, for Jew or non-Jew, that has to be done through the Torah and through the mitzvah. That's the only way you can nourish the soul, is by giving it life. How do you give it life? You make a blessing. You sit in the sukkah, right? You eat 35 pounds of matzah in 35 seconds and then whistle Dixie. Like, you do all these different things and it gives you life, but don't think the body's is gonna allow that, because you're gonna have this conflict your entire life. The body's gonna say, Sunday, football. The soul's gonna say, I want to go pray. Body says, what are you talking about? Pre-game show, halftime show. Like, gotta prepare. Gotta watch all these different things. So there's always this conflict between the body and the soul. Now remember, we started with that the soul is put in the body. That God sends it out. So if it's got a holy mission, so you got to ask yourself, should I be watching football? Is that part of my holy mission? Is that what I'm doing here? So now we get into the idea of, if I'm really supposed to reconnect to God, and that's really what my purpose is in this world, that's all that God wants, is that he wants you to connect to him, and he gives you, it's amazing, he actually gave you a book how to do it. It's called the Torah. His own blueprint for that. So if you tune in and do what he wants you to do, that draws you closer. If I don't, that draws me further away. Now remember, if I have a purpose in this world, and my soul is really supposed to be close to God, what happens when I mess up? What happens when I don't do what I'm supposed to do? So this gets into the idea of reward and punishment in this world, which happens to be one of the 13 principles of faith by Maimonides, and certainly every Jew has to believe in it, and that is that there's an absolute God who knows the thoughts of man, and because he's absolute, then he has the ability to reward and punish. Because if he wasn't absolute, then we could do whatever we want. There's nothing binding us, to do anything. You'll say, well, if I feel like doing it, good. If I don't feel like doing it, but the reality is I have an obligation, don't I? Or if I don't have an obligation, then fine. Then God can't be absolute. That's why there has to be an ability, to reward and punishment, which gets us to now what happened when man ate from the tree of knowledge. Right? If you go back to Genesis and the whole story of the snake, beginning in Genesis chapter 3.
Okay.
Right? The snake comes in and he seduces Eve, and she eats from the tree. And then everyone passes the buck. God says, hey, they hid. And God says, hey, what happened? Where are you? It's like, oh, we're hiding. We're embarrassed. They're like, did you eat from the tree I told you not to? So Adam says, I didn't do it. She told me to do it. And then she says, I didn't do it. Snake told me to do it. So God says, all right, everyone out of the pool, right? Throws everybody out, and everyone gets punished, right? Woman gets punished with, hard childbirth and raising children. Man gets punished because he has to work hard for his livelihood, and the snake gets punished because he has his legs chopped off and he has to wither around on the ground. Commentaries say, what do you mean? What kind of punishment is that? So he's always got food, the snake. You never have to worry about anything. So God's like pushing him aside and says, I'll give him everything now, and he'll never have any connection to me whatsoever. So that's a serious, that's a serious punishment for that. So after they eat from the tree, so what happens is that evil inclination is now inside themselves. In other words, Adam made a calculation, and Adam said, listen, if I do this, and I eat from the tree, every time I do something good, what happens is that the merit that I'll get, the reward that I'll get for doing something good, goes up exponentially. If I do something bad, same thing. It'll go down, exponentially. So the Talmud says that God says, Adam, that's a great idea. There's only one problem. I didn't create the world for that. That wasn't why I wanted to create the world. So the Talmud says that Adam's probably the single greatest, creation in the history of man, probably almost a pure soul in this world, and the Talmud says that he's called a heretic. A heretic.
Really? Wow.
Greatest creation of all time. Why? Because he went against what God wanted him to do. In other words, he thought he knew better. See, that's why I love getting all these comments. I know better than God. Really? You're going to go into God's brain, the Torah says this. You know what it means? Tell me what it means. Explain to me what it means. Right? We're not playing God here. We're going according to what the sources tell us. You don't like the sources? We'll speak about oral tradition. Right? That's not the topic for now.
Hey, Rabbi, real quickly, you said I could interrupt you. I'm just going to add this in here. Scotty Freestone on YouTube is asking, do animals have souls? We're talking about souls, right? Do animals have souls? That would be a question.
They have one soul. It's called the nefesh. It's a nefesh behemoth. It's the soul of an animal, but that's it. Man also has that aspect of the soul. There are 5 parts of the soul that at least Jews have. Non-Jews have a little bit less than that. Nonetheless, animals have that animalistic soul. What's an animalistic soul for them? It's just programmed DNA. It's just they eat, they sleep, they procreate. They don't do anything else. They're totally programmed, but they can't go outside that program. But man also has those aspects of animals.
Got it.
Right? We also procreate. We also, we also eat. We also drink. We also do other things. So we have that aspect of us that also, that also gives us problems because, the body really wants to go after the physical, and you got to fight tooth and nail in order to go after the spiritual.
Gotcha. Okay, before we continue, big shout out to Amber Skaggs. She's tuning in for the first time. She said she's new to this. So hello, Amber. Thanks for tuning in. And we would love to hear your question that you have on your mind. So if you want to call in, 855-952-4253, the number's on your screen. If you're not comfortable with that, go ahead and type it here. I'll try to monitor the YouTube page, and I'll try to get your question in. So, Rabbi, go ahead.
So at this point, Adam and Eve ate from the tree, and evil's inside of them. So again, Adam had the right intention. Problem is, that's not what God told him to do. Now, at this point, there's a problem. The problem is that they certainly had sinned, and because they had sinned, that there has to be rectification. They have to pay the price for what they have, for what they've done. So now you have a major problem. What's the major problem? Major problem is there's a tree that's in the garden. It's called the tree of life. So what happens if they eat the tree of life? So they live forever, right? Fame! I'm gonna live, right? They live forever.
Yeah, for sure.
They're gonna live forever. Well, you can't live forever if you need rectification.
Mm-hmm.
How are you gonna get rectification if you live forever? So there was a decree that God made. The decree was death. They have to go through death now. So what does God do? He puts these short little babies on wings, baby face on wings, these cherubim, as they're called, with these fiery swords, puts them by the tree, sends man out of the garden. Man gets expelled from the garden. So therefore, death has to occur. Death, according to the way the Torah is set up, you can check this out. Death, according to the way the Torah is set up, never should have been. Death is not a Jewish concept. But because of what man did, because man has free will, because of what they did, so there are repercussions now. So now we understand that, we have a little bit of background. So what happens? So now we can actually hit the topic. What happens? What happens when a person dies? So a person's in this world. As we mentioned, they have certain goals, whatever they have to reach or try and reach, and they're living in God's world. So living in God's world, the goal is to attach to Him, to do what He wants us to do. If we do the right thing, as the Torah says clear, so good, there's reward in the next world. If we do the wrong thing, there's payback, right? There are repercussions. Now, people feel very uncomfortable with this, that I hate to say it, but there are consequences for what we do. Now, take a little kid who's got his hand in the cookie jar. You say, I got him. Okay. When do we feel the consequences? When we get caught. When we do something. Otherwise we don't necessarily feel the consequences. Now, what we do in this world, obviously matters. It's, either we make, we strive positively, or God forbid, negatively. So everything that goes on in this world, is actually recorded, right? This is brought down as well, as the Zohar says, which, a few hundred years ago, we couldn't have even imagined such a thing. Now you have, you had the record player, 8-track. Well, they don't exist anymore, right? Record players also don't exist. Now you got phones that have more memory that can videotape and, take pictures and all that. Certainly more than we had, way back when. So, things are recorded. We understand that things can be recorded, certainly in this world. Well, in the spiritual world, the same thing. We have, as the Zohar says, we have angels that follow us around and record everything, that we do. So anyone who's ever heard a story about anybody that has had an out-of-body experience, meaning they've been clinically dead, their soul hovers above the body, and they're drawn to this tunnel in this great light, right? This great light being, as we understand, is going towards the infinite, meaning, towards God. But everybody, Jew or non-Jew, if they've had an out-of-body experience, so the first thing that happens, even before, this tunnel and the light, is that they see their life flash before their eyes. Everybody says it. It's not, this is across the board. This is, you can look this up and see if it's true. Everybody says the same thing.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing.
Everyone says the same thing. So this is not, it's not, Kabbalah mumbo jumbo here. This is, this is the real thing. This is what everybody says. So we can't imagine that. Imagine when you thought it was safe to read National Geographic in the bathroom. Like, come on. That's also recorded. Everything's recorded. So when everything's recorded,
I want to drop a thought on you.
Because
I heard this and this was quite fascinating. Like I said, I don't know what's real, what's not. I'm just learning and sharing what I have heard. And so, Rabbi Manis Friedman from Chabad.org and on Facebook, I was listening to one of his lectures in Kabbalah, and he had mentioned that whole light at the end of the tunnel. The people see this white figure dressed in white, like a angel in white,
right,
and urging you to come forward. And he had mentioned that I don't know who or where the teaching comes from, but it says that's not seeing like you say your entry to heaven or the future. It's actually a memory of your past. And what is the very first memory that you have? Not memory that you have, because I don't remember it, but the very first experience that a human experiences in this world is being birthed into this world. So
Right.
you're in this dark tunnel, right? And then you're coming out and you see this bright light in the sky in white, or nowadays it's blue and teal green, and trying to pull you out, And I was thinking, that is so profound. It's very, very possible that that's true. I mean, I've had people say, I saw my dad there. My dad's passed away. So how's this possible? Well, was your dad passed away when you were born? So there's some really interesting thoughts on that.
They say also when a person dies or before they die, like their relatives come to greet them.
Okay.
Their dead relatives come to greet them. So a rabbi of mine once told me when his mother was very sick, and right before she died, she was screaming like, "Get out of here! I'm not ready to come!" And she had seen dead relatives that came to escort her to the next world.
Wow.
That's again, this I heard firsthand, or secondhand, whatever. But he was there.
I'll tell you what.
There when it happened.
This may seem off topic, but I don't think it is at all. I've had friends in the past who were like drug heads and stuff. I've never really done drugs, but okay. Confession time. I smoked marijuana twice, like in my whole life, and I got sick. But anyway,
well, you didn't inhale, right? No inhale.
That's funny. Okay, so this guy, his name is Bill Baumgartner. I haven't talked to him in years. Hopefully, he wouldn't care if I told it anyway. But anyway, he said it was really weird. Him and some friends were sitting around doing. It wasn't marijuana. It was like doing LSD or something. And it was like him and like 5 or 6 other guys there, and one of our other friends was there who was actually sober. Okay, and so my sober friend is telling me about this event with this Bill Baumgartner and all this other stuff. He says they're all just goofing off and laughing and just acting drunk and however you act. And he said all of a sudden, all at once, he goes, every single one of them that were on this drug, they all stopped and like freaked out and looked up in this corner, right? Well, the sober guy never saw anything, but every single one of them on this drug saw something, but the sober guy didn't. So, it kind of makes you wonder, supernatural stuff. I mean, hey, I didn't experience it.
Some people's souls are much more sensitive, than others. If you take somebody, let's say someone who's autistic, for example,
right?
They're a messed up, they're a soul in a messed up body, right? But they are, they're more of a soul than a body in many ways. So they see, and they fathom things much more, in spiritual terms than certainly we can. Even if you want to say that facilitation that's done with autistic children and what they say, you want to say it's a bunch of hogwash or whatever, you can say what you want, but there are plenty that certainly believe in in that, and what they take what they say pretty seriously, because there's stuff that they come out saying that, based on where they're holding and where they are, it's like an impossibility. It's an impossibility for them to know, whatever it is.
Interesting. Okay, let's take this caller. Caller, thanks for being patient. Tell us your name, where you're calling from, please. Oh. Hello, are you still with us? Caller, can you hear me? They might have disconnected. They might have thought we couldn't hear them talking. Okay, so when you call in, like I said, just be prepared to be on hold. You'll hear us talk back and forth, but you may just be listening to us talk for 3, 4, 5, 10 minutes. I'm not really sure. Depends on how long we can get to, or how long it takes to get to the end of our discussion. So phone lines are back open, 855-952-4253. For memory verses when you're not around, 855-95-BIBLE. Big shout out to my dear friend, Mr. T. Travis, for setting all this stuff up for us. Okay, Rabbi, go ahead and continue.
All right, so, when a person has this out-of-body experience, and they see their life flash before them, again, that everyone agrees on, that's exactly what the Zohar, what Kabbalah says is supposed to happen. So at that point, a person dies. Well, we're talking about when a person dies here, that judgment, is going to occur. That means they're going to be asked, did you keep the Torah? Did you keep what I wanted you to do? Were you honest in business? How are your interpersonal relationships? So everything that they've done, they're going to see a first movie. The first movie is what they did in this world. Everything that they did in this world. Second movie, and again, you can't do anything because you're a spiritual soul. All you can do is just, watch in horror of what you've done. The second movie is what you did, what you had the potential to do.
Oh, right. I remember this.
And that is a much scarier thing, because many hold that, there is this concept of, of heaven and hell, and yeah, it is a Jewish concept. I hate to burst everyone's bubble, but that's also a, Jewish concept. And, somebody I know tragically had a child that was killed in a car accident, and they said, someone, comforted them and said, well, at least your son's in a better place. And the person told me he was a Jew. They said, I thought that was like such a Christian thing to say. So I said, well, where do you think they got it from? That comes from us, obviously. But, so everything now is crystal clear. And now you're a pure soul, like in tremendous fear, because you've seen what your potential is, and you've seen what you've done. So part of that embarrassment, and that's exactly what it is. Part of that embarrassment is what we hold is part of what hell is. That's part of the suffering that a person will go through. That certainly atones for things that they've done. It won't atone for everything, right? You might have to pay another price, but that will atone for what for some things that you might have done, because you're just totally 100% embarrassed by what you've done,
which causes you to return, right?
So these souls, these angels that come and they photographed and videotaped everything, so God's going to say, okay, let's bring up everything that the person did, right? He judges, just like a court down here would judge, and won't judge until they hear all the evidence, usually if it's a court that's on the up and up, right? So the heavenly court's the same thing. God is not going to judge until he sees all the evidence. And once all the evidence comes in, then we're going to get judged for, then God's going to judge it. Now, how does he judge it? Now, there's a good thing that God does not judge what we possibly could have done in the future. God is only going to judge us, everything that we do. We're judged on, why we did it, what our intention was, and where we're holding at that time. Now, it's interesting. How do we know that? Where do we know that from? So actually, we learn it out from Yishmael, because Avram sends him away, and there's no more water in the flask. Hagar gives up hope. She hears his pain, and she doesn't want to see him die. And there was an angel comes and says, Hagar, what's going on? She says, I want to see my son die, and an oasis is created. She fills up the water, saves her child. So the Torah says, God heard the cry of the youth, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said, what troubles you? Fear not, God has heeded the cry of the youth in his present state. That's what the Torah says, Genesis chapter 21, verse 17. Now, that's important. Why does it say in his present state? Because the commentaries say, the angels say, kill him, let him die. So, why? Because we know that, the Arabs are going to be the offspring of Yishmael, and they're going to cause tremendous pain to the Jewish people in the future. So the angels say, God, just knock them out, so the Jewish people don't have any problem later in history. So God asked the angels, let me ask you the following question. This child, is he guilty or not? Is he guilty or innocent? The angels say he's innocent. That's it. If he's innocent right now, I can't knock him off. So we learn out from here that a person is judged where he's holding right now.
Interesting.
As the Torah says, in his present state. Not past, not future.
So
where he is right now.
The man turns from his sins. That's right. Man.
So our actions are going to be seen in that, in that context, not according to what potential is. So now the soul is done. It's seen all the good things it did, seen all the bad things it's done. The soul's going to have to pay a price now. That price is called a rectification process. So the soul can be sent to Gehenna, or as we call we translate it as hell for a certain amount of time, and it gets fixed up, hopefully gets purged, fixed up, and will rejoin, in the best case scenario, will rejoin the body, whatever that body looks like, in resurrection. If it passes the test, then it'll get the benefit and reward of what it's done in this world, but it's going to be waiting in this soul world for that.
Okay, let me jump in.
Until resurrection comes.
Okay, this seems like a good time to drop this in. Mitch Orlovsky from on YouTube has a great question. If you've married multiple wives, which one of those souls would you be joined with in heaven? Let me further that question. To further that question is, what happens if you marry the wrong woman that you weren't intended for?
So I don't know if we have time for all this. I will. I'll mention. I'll say like this: that a man, when he marries a woman, right? That's going to be the pretext here. Go back to the first controversial issue on homosexuality, but that's the pretext. Man marries a woman. So when a man marries a woman, he's like half a soul. So when he marries a woman, he's complete.
Right.
Now, if he marries the right woman, so then his soul becomes complete. Now, even if that's true, there can be things that go astray or go awry where, let's say he gets divorced. But this was supposed to be the soulmate that he was supposed to be with. Yeah, it certainly is, but we could have blown it. We certainly could have blown it. So even though it's, that may be the soulmate, doesn't necessarily mean, everything's going to be great. So let's say that soulmate dies. Can a person have a second one? So seemingly yes. That is, that is certainly the case. Because you can see a person can certainly be married more than once. So then the question is, okay, if that's true, then, are they reunited? Who are they reunited with? So,
right.
So I would have to assume, and I'm not sure. I would assume it would be with the first wife, but I'm not. I'm not sure about that. There's also a question just on top of that. There's a question when the soul and body come together by resurrection, whenever that's going to be. If a person's been here multiple times, then the question is which body is going to get up. It's going to be a different body than we understand it, but which body is actually going to get up at resurrection? So as far as I understand, it's going to be the body that helped the soul the most reach its potential.
Okay.
In other words, whatever body a person was in, if it's been here twice, 3 times, whatever it is, that body that helped the soul reach its potential the most, that's the body that's going to get up in resurrection. But again, it's a different type of body than we understand what it is today.
Okay, let me. I'm going to try to squeeze in 1 or 2 more questions. If we can kind of keep the answers tidy, we might be able to get more than just 2 in. This is from April Neforis, from Leaving Christianity and Finding the Truth in Toward Judaism. Do individuals like police, fire, and EMS who choose to do this job to help other people get extra merit when they are judged? Or how it says somewhere in I think it's in Proverbs or something like that. It says something about God has mercy on the fatherless or whatever, that area. So in the same sense, does God have more mercy on these people and give them more slack because they spent their lives dedicated to saving other lives?
So Rav Elia Lopian, one of the Torah giants of the last generation, Zecher Tzadik Levrocha, may his name be blessed, said that if a person wants to merit long life in this world, he should work with the masses. In other words, he should, be active in helping others. Because if he's helping others, that means even if he's done things wrong, he's still needed by the masses.
Nice. Okay.
In other words, that is protection. Again, there's no guarantee because there's a lot of things that can happen, in between. But if they help out others and they do what, and they go beyond what they need to do, so to speak, and they're needed by others, he said that's a special protection for them, and God's not going to take them away even if they do things wrong because he's needed by the masses until
that's
God,
awesome. Wow.
Until God sees that the person isn't needed anymore, people can live without him, get other people take his place. Okay, then the protection, then the protection goes. But certainly somebody who sacrifices their life for others, I don't think there's anything greater than that.
So maybe I should
it
wait.
should be a merit for them. It should guard them.
Maybe I should wait for a long, long time before I train somebody to take my place here.
I don't know. It's not the man that wears the hat. Those are big shoes you have to fill. So
right,
100%.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, another question. Jennifer Nuss, I hope I'm saying this right. Does everyone have a soulmate? Because I've never had one, or at least that she's aware of.
Everybody does. Everyone's created with half a soul.
Nice.
Now you could, you can marry the wrong one. Imagine, I'll just throw this out there. Imagine if a Jew, just one case, where a Jew, he marries the wrong person, meaning he marries a non-Jew. Let's say. So I read this book called Made in Heaven by Rabbi Kaplan about when I was first engaged, and in the introduction he says this doesn't affect you. It affects your wife, it affects your kids, it affects all future generations. I'm like, who, me? I'm like, no, I'm not interested. I shut the book. That's as far as I got. But but he says when you get married, right, it affects all future generations. So let's say a Jew marries a non-Jew. Now, in many places, intermarriage is over 70%. It's even higher than that. So if a Jew marries the wrong person, marries a non-Jew. So where's his other soulmate? Where's his other half a soul? That means that they married the wrong person. And all the kids that they should have had together, however many there are, they also don't get created. So now imagine, this is one person. So now you've just made a huge matrix that just totally got messed up. In other words, take a genealogy tree.
Yeah, right.
And it just got, it splatters. It gets totally, totally messed up. So if you think about it in those terms, now God in His infinite wisdom has to now work everything out differently.
Mm-hmm.
And, how does He do that? That's pretty incredible because, now you're talking about, 1 in a billion, 1 in a trillion, 1 in 5, whatever the number is, and He has to now connect all these dots that are messed up. So you say, so people say, okay, so, I intermarried, big deal. So what if the Torah says it's forbidden? But now, look at the practical ramification of one person. I didn't say 5, I didn't say, 70%. One person. So if one person messes up, in this case, look at what the repercussions are. That's pretty severe. So people say, it's not such a big deal. Really? Not such a big deal? That, you have destroyed the universe in more ways than one. You made God's, you made His work a lot more difficult now. Now, it's got to manifest all these different things, put other people together and work this out, all these different things. But He gave you free will to do it. You blew it. You can't blow it any bigger than that. And the repercussions are absolutely severe.
Well, this will be a good final follow-up for that then. Is be fruitful and multiply for the non-Jew, for B'nai Noach?
There's an obligation to propagate, to have children in the world. For a non-Jew, there's an obligation to replenish the world. If no one had children, then the world
but is that one of the 7 Noahide laws, or 63, however many there are? Is that one of them, that they also have to be fruitful and multiply? Can a person choose to never get married, never have children?
There's an obligation to have, let's say, a boy and a girl. A non-Jew can certainly, they should have children. They definitely should have children, but they certainly don't have to have a set number, and they can certainly have a number of years in between.
So Halakha states, are you saying that Halakha states that a non-Jew also must have children?
Should have children, yeah.
I mean,
if he can't have children,
if it's not possible, then you just can't.
If it's not possible, then it's like a mitzvah. He can't perform. It's it's not his fault or whatever the case is, but it's just a mitzvah that you didn't do.
Okay, Jennifer.
How far do you have to go out of your way to do it?
Jennifer said something funny. I got a good laugh out of it. She did too, because she said LOL after it. It was kind of funny. She goes, "Well, I don't feel like half a soul." She goes, "I prefer not to get married."
Yeah, there are people out there.
So you know what? Anyway, you're not meant to be alone. I don't believe so. Maybe you just feel full because you haven't found your half yet.
It's not a good thing for a man to be alone, or You know,
Right.
for women, it would make a lot more sense for them to be alone than for men. You know, that,
Yep.
you know, that women don't need men.
Right.
That's
right.
for sure. But,
Right.
you know, that's for sure. But this is a man
Right.
talking. But, you know, that I definitely understand. On the, you know, on the other side, yeah, for sure. You know, man shouldn't be alone. That's the way God set it up. But there are people that, you know, have a lot of difficulty in finding their mate. That's for sure.
Well, Rabbi, do me a favor. I think we're going to wrap it up. I don't believe it seems like we've got a lot of area to cover on this topic. So we may
Right,
be.
we didn't get to the practical ramifications.
Yeah, so maybe next week we'll just do part 2 on the same topic next week. Phone lines will be open for questions. So if you guys watching out there have more questions about Kabbalah or reincarnation, things of that nature, deja vu, you know, whatever you want to add in there, write your questions down and tune in and call in or put them up here on the YouTube chat. That would be great. Rabbi, take a minute or two again and just let everybody know we've got a few viewers here. Tell them what you're doing with Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism with Facebook. And you also had a website I was supposed to put up here, and I forgot to. Please tell us about that.
I forgot to remind you of that also. Okay, so I have a Facebook page called Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, Beyond Noahides. So I work with converts and Noahides. I give classes online. Also, I have an intro to Kabbalah class based on the book I mentioned before, Derech Hashem, which has nothing to do with conversion, which is it's called The Way of God, which talks about prophecy, divine providence, individual providence, the nations, where they fit in, reincarnation. He speaks about as well. So that meets once a week. Again, has nothing to do with conversion. That's open for Jews, for Jews and non-Jews. And I also have a Torah portion of the week class. You know, again, you know, people want to convert, don't want to convert. It's open for everyone as well. And my website is at orthodoxconversion.com.
orthodoxconversion.com. Very good. Send me a link on that if you would, and I'll be sure to put it in for next week. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for all you guys tuning in. I love this show. I love this series. It's the opportunity to to be able to talk about things that most people would not dare to talk about publicly. And we've got just the guy to do it right here, the crazy rabbi.
The one to do it. You know? No problem. Go ahead. Bring your questions.
Our little Orthodox stick of dynamite right here. Well, man, Rabbi, thanks. It's been awesome. Really enjoyed it. Can't wait to see you next week. Can't wait to see everybody else next week. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also subscribe to the Facebook page, to Knock Talk on the events page. You can subscribe there, and every time we create an event or edit an event because of time delay or whatever the case may be, you will be notified. So thanks again. Love you guys. Shalom, shalom, Rabbi, and shalom, everyone. See you next time, same place. Shalom, everyone. Bye.
Shalom.
Shalom.
אתם תמיד כולם ביחד, חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה והכמיהה. אני אתה אתם תמיד כולם ביחד, חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי